An invocation by Councilmember Campbell.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will you please bow your heads? Lord, inspire us today with the qualities of good counsel. Give us insight to make wise decisions, integrity to face the truth, courage to make the difficult choices, and compassion for the needs of others. Bless and protect our military all over the world. Bless and protect our police and fire who watch over us every day. And bless all present this evening and give them safe travel to their homes at the conclusion of this meeting. Amen.
Thank you. There are no, well, before we do that, I decided tonight, let's do a roll call, City Clerk. We do have one council member, being our Vice Mayor, that's not here this evening.
Vice Mayor Osborne is absent. Councilmember Pizzillo.
Here.
Councilmember Loretano.
Here.
Councilmember Campbell.
Here.
Councilmember Gilzer.
Present.
Councilmember Stipp.
Present.
Mayor Lord.
Present.
6 council members are present.
Thank you. There are no expenditures to ratify, so let's start out with communication.
Do you want to, you need to make a
Mayor
motion
Lord.
to
I'm sorry, we have to
excuse?
make a motion to excuse Vice Mayor Osborne. Do I hear a motion to excuse Vice Mayor Osborne?
So moved. Second.
I heard a motion by Councilwoman Loretano and second by Councilman Campbell. Roll call.
Councilmember Pizzillo.
Aye.
Councilmember Loretano.
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell.
Aye.
Councilmember Gilzer.
Aye.
Councilmember Stipp.
Aye.
Mayor Lord.
Aye.
Passes 6-0.
Okay, so now we'll go to communications. We'll do the update on the status of ADOT's first construction phase for Loop 303 Interstate 10 Exchange. Interchange, sorry.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Momentarily, I should have the PowerPoint up on the overhead. This evening, I would like to update or present a brief update regarding the Loop 303 I-10 interchange construction. ADOT awarded the project in September to Police Construction Company at a cost of approximately $134 million. We anticipate a 30-month construction duration beginning this month with completion in mid-2014, and the project will be built in 4 construction phases. Sorry, let me... This evening I'll focus on construction phase 1. As I mentioned, it started earlier this month, and it will be completed in August of 2012. It's approximately a 9-month duration construction phase. ADOT prepared and distributed this flyer a few weeks ago to the HOAs, businesses, and the public for this construction phase 1. I left a copy for you there on your dais. They will issue similar flyers in advance of each construction phase. And as the flyer indicates, this project will provide ramp connections between the Loop 303 and I-10, similar to the Loop 101 and I-10 interchange in Tolleson and Avondale. Loop 303 will be widened to 6 lanes from I-10 in Goodyear to US 60 in Surprise. In the flyer, ADOT further states that with any complex construction project, there is a possibility that severe weather or other unforeseen difficulties may result in unscheduled closures, restrictions, or changes that could affect the schedule. Phase 1 construction will include new half-diamond interchanges at I-10 at Seville Avenue and Citrus Road. Also improvements to Thomas Road and Cotton Lane, and a temporary detour at McDowell Road and Cotton Lane that will be used later on in the project. This phase will also include the relocation of the city's sewage grinder lift station and force main that serves the Perryville prison. And finally, ADOT states that they strive to do their work when traffic volumes are at their lowest, and this would be during the non-peak hours from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., Monday through Friday, as well as nights and weekends. Depending on the activity, however, construction may occur throughout the day. There will be 3 street closures associated with Phase 1 construction. There will be closures at Saraville and Citrus at the time that the ramp construction is underway to allow them to construct the cross-street improvements at those 2 streets underneath I-10. They've already closed Cotton Lane south of Thomas Road. Actually, at Indian School to the south, it's open for local traffic only, and then it's closed from Thomas down to Cotton Lane so that they can, on Cotton Lane from Thomas down to McDowell, excuse me, so that they can construct Cotton Lane. And they've also closed the Thomas Road connector between the 303 and Cotton Lane, again, so that they can improve that. ADOT has implemented a comprehensive public outreach plan. ADOT staff coordinates closely with city staff regarding construction progress, traffic controls, detours, restrictions, closures, and impacts to city facilities. They provide regular and ongoing updates to 10 of the HOAs in Goodyear in the area, as well as more than 40 businesses in the area, at least once every 6 months. And that'll continue for the duration of the project through 2014. They will maximize route signage during construction to provide information to motorists about what's happening ahead. They will do this by utilizing dynamic and variable message boards on I-10, Loop 101 southbound, and Loop 303. ADOT communicates to the public in a variety of ways, including web page updates, email alerts, and press releases. Project information can be obtained online at valleyfreeway.com/loop303, and ADOT will respond to messages that are left on the ADOT project hotline. And then City of Goodyear includes information regarding traffic closures and restrictions on our webpage at goodyearaz.gov. Next update, I will return in the spring of 2012 to provide the next project update prior to the beginning of Project 2 construction. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions? Yes, Councilman Loretano.
I have 2 questions. First of all, is this going to be on the city's website? Because I don't think this is going out to our HOA up in Estrella, and although we're not immediately affected, that's Cotton Lane's the way a lot of people take.
Councilmember Loretano, we can certainly put that on the city website.
And then my other question is, I noticed when they did the I-10 construction, what would happen is that they closed ramps or people were taking alternate routes. They would back up Dysart and Litchfield Road, and people would back up to the freeway, and there was probably an accident every day on Dysart. I know this is really out of your control, but are they going to time those lights as people get off the freeway to keep those freeway off-ramps clear? Because what happens is people are going to avoid Cotton Lane, so Estrella, even with the new construction, is going to start backing up. And Dysart are. Mm-hmm.
Yes, with the construction of the on-ramps, they're actually going to signalize the intersections there, Saraville and Citrus.
Oh, no, I mean the ones getting off the freeway, like getting off the freeway to Estrella, because everybody stops to make their left turn or their right turn down Pebble Creek, and because they're not going to want to go down Cotton Lane because of the construction and all the closures, and then that's going to end up backing up, and that's what happened when they did I-10. Everything just backed up to the freeway to try to get off the freeway, and I got almost hit several times, and I had always seen an accident there because the lights to move that traffic off the lanes just wasn't long enough.
Yes, we would anticipate the traffic at Saraville to be less than what we had at say at Dysart and Litchfield, but we will work with ADOT to time the signals so that traffic will not back up onto the main line.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Campbell.
Thank you. I have 2 questions. Is ADOT here tonight?
Mayor Lord, Council Member Campbell, no, they are not here tonight.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask you this question. You probably cannot answer it, but I would appreciate it if you would follow through with ADOT. I know that this project is going to go 30 months. I'd like to know in their contract with the company that's going to be building all of this, is there a penalty clause if it's not finished on time? Because I know how frustrated Avondale is over their intersection on Avondale Boulevard, and I don't want that to happen in Goodyear. And I'm concerned about that. And the second question I have is to follow up with Council Member Larantano, is it's the off-ramp going to Pebble Creek Parkway and Estrella that we're talking about. While you may be checking the other lights, please be sure that y'all monitor that or do it so that those cars are off the freeway. Because we sometimes have been backed up all the way to Litchfield Road trying to get off.
Mayor Lord, Councilmember Campbell, we
Okay.
will definitely check on those two items.
Thank you very
Report back.
much.
Councilman Bazillo?
When does it go into effect? I guess for the rerouting of the, excuse me, the rerouting of where the super target is? Are they going to be rerouting that? When does that take effect? And I know they've been concerned as far as the traffic, and that particular shopping center already has a lot of empty shops in there. When will that start? Do you know?
Mayor Lord, Councilmember Pizzillo, that won't start until Phase 2, so that would be after next summer, say August or so. It wouldn't be until the half diamond interchange at Saraville has been constructed, so that would provide the alternative to the Cotton Lane off-ramp.
Do you know how long that post moment may be for access to that super target? You know, my biggest concern is they'll be rerouting and going down Estrella Parkway, creating more, time is of an essence, as I mentioned, Councilmember Laurentano and Councilmember Campbell dealt with, is that is a shopping center that, I know it's got to be constructed, but concerned about how much of that traffic will be diverted, down Estrella Parkway, and especially for a shopping center, it has a lot of, still empty slots there, so.
That condition will last through Phase 2, 3, and into Phase 4, actually. It will be until Phase 4 when the frontage road connection to Cotton Lane is in place. So in the meantime, I guess to encourage use of the Saraville off-ramp, they're going to put signage on the freeway as well as good signage on Saraville and Van Buren to direct traffic over to Cotton Lane so that it won't add even more, try to minimize the additional volume to Estrella Parkway and Pebble Creek Parkway during that duration.
In addition, Bullard Avenue, I guess for signalization, we want to make sure that that's also lined up so there's no backup as they try to find alternative ways of getting off the I-10. Thank you.
We will do that.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Now on item B, update on the City of Goodyear's participation in the 2011 APS Peak Solutions Demand Response Program. Mark Flynn presenting.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Mark Flynn from Public Works. It's with pleasure this evening that I update you about the City of Goodyear's participation in the load shed program, Peak Demand Response, with APS and a company they've subcontracted to called Converge. This is the second year that the City of Goodyear has participated in the program, and I'm pleased to present to you this evening an award check from APS valued at just over $6,200 for our participation this year. The check actually has been deposited with finance already, but I do have the recognition plaque for our participation. The second year of participation, we achieved a load shed value of 250 kilowatts as part of our program. That was the goal we had established with the company at the beginning of the program, and the program runs from June of each year until September. Obviously, the high cooling months, there's a time where APS has a concern about their ability to produce electricity for needed responses in addition to what the city may be drawing. The company has the opportunity to call what they'll call an event during an 8-hour window between 12 and noon on any given day. And during that window of time, there could be up to 4 events called as part of our participation. That voluntary participation means that the City of Goodyear would begin shedding load, turning off unused appliances, or making changes to reduce our electrical consumption with an idea to allow APS to reroute electricity where necessary and hopefully potentially avoid the impact of what a brownout would occur or potentially a blackout as a result of that. An event could be called as a result of a high temperature day if we were looking at temperatures in excess of 110 to 115 degrees, or in the event of some type of mechanical failure. The substation fire that you saw recently in the Northeast Valley would be a component that would have allowed a triggered event to occur. Fortunately, this summer, in the summer of 2011, the only event that was called was an event that was a test. But we were able to achieve our goal during that window of time. We reached that 250 kilowatt level, and subsequently were awarded that component. Our target last year was 200 kilowatts. We reached 250 this year. We received an increase in payment from APS and from Converge, about an increase of about 17%. We were at about $5,300 last year. You may recall we'd done a presentation with members from Converge and APS present. This year they're not with us, but I did want to pass along their congratulations for our participation in the program. It's quite an exciting opportunity, and we're hoping to build upon our success these last 2 years and increase that number dramatically. Our goal going into next year is an increase of somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 to 400%. So we've developed some pretty significant plans to allow us to shed that load in the event that an emergency were to be called, but then also to look at longer-term conservation efforts to aid the city in reducing our overall electrical consumption. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about the program.
Thank you. Questions, Council?
I've got one.
Yes, Councilman Stipp?
Mark, I know APS has been working with the schools and several other businesses to put in solar panels. Mm-hmm. Have we looked at that at any of the city properties to try to, I'm just looking for a little background on that.
We have, and we continue to do so. We've identified 5 locations where there would be the possibility for large-scale power plant level productivity, in the neighborhood of 500 kilowatts to maybe as much as a megawatt of production, looking at the tops of water storage tanks, at the park and ride facility where we have the shade canopies at City Hall. Those types of components are the areas that we're looking at. In order to make those type programs work, it's often advantageous for us to look at a third-party vendor because the city of Goodyear wouldn't be entitled to the tax credits associated with some of those type projects. Some of the schools that you've seen recently, places like Millennium or Estrella Foothills, they had done that with dollars that had been awarded to them through the ERA program, the American Reinvestment and Recovery Act that was occurred. We used our dollars from the ERA program in order to upgrade some air conditioning efficiency and to look at some additional insulation levels and some spray-on roofing that we put on a couple of fire stations that are underway currently. But in the component where solar has value for us, we're looking at that component where we could lock in a steady rate for anywhere from a 20 to a 25 or 30-year point in time, and then look at what the production values would be to offset what the consumption level is at city facilities.
Great, thank you.
You're quite welcome.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
You're quite welcome. If I may, Mayor Lord, I'll leave you with the plaque this evening for the program.
Oh, great.
Thank you very much for participation.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome. Thank you.
Next item on C, I'd like to read a letter to all of you. During this downturn, our economic development team has brought a number of companies and opening a number of jobs, and it's still happening. And so I received this letter, and it's a short one, but I just wanted to read it to you to give our team some credit. It's from the Arizona Commerce Authority, Keith Watkins, who is the Senior Vice President of the Business Attraction. He says, "Dear Mayor, I have just returned from attending your ribbon-cutting ceremony for the Dick's Sporting Goods Distribution Center, a first-class event and a fantastic win for Goodyear. I also wanted to send you a note to let you know what a phenomenal job your economic development team does. When we bring clients to Goodyear, not only is every detail thought of and addressed ahead of time, the quality and the succinctness of the information is on spot. It is the small things such as these that set Goodyear apart from others and make all of our jobs smoother. Congratulations again on your win today. Regards, Keith." And I just want to give our economic development team a round of applause. Okay, now we're at the point where it's time for our citizens who would like to address the city council on any non-agenda item. Are there any speaker cards?
Yes. Julio Iglesias.
And would you please state your name and your address? And before you speak, I just want to review this again, that council will listen to your comments, and we may take any one of the following actions. We could respond to your criticism. We request that the staff investigate and report on the matter, or request that the matter may be scheduled on a future agenda. And please limit your comments to 3 minutes. There'll be a red, a yellow, and a green light on there. I'm sure you've been familiar with that, so go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Jay Iglesias, Julio Iglesias, and 2009 North 161st Drive in Goodyear is my address. I was employed by the City of Goodyear as a police officer from 2003 to 2010. By all accounts, including my performance evaluations and numerous commendations I received, I was an outstanding employee and also a recipient of the Distinguished Service Award. I wrote a memo and submitted it to the City Attorney and HR Director at a meeting on February 12, 2010. The memo detailed several instances of Goodyear police misconduct and malfeasance. One of the issues I raised in the memo involved the police department's mishandling of a complaint I filed on September 24, 2008 against Brad Harden. Officer Harden flat out lied in a complaint that he lodged against me in reference to a domestic violence call he and I responded to previously. My formal complaint against Harden for lying was completely ignored by the police department. 1 week after the meeting with the HR Director and the City Attorney, I was placed on administrative leave, then subsequently wrongfully terminated on April 9, 2010. I hired an attorney and filed an appeal and was scheduled for a hearing on May 14, 2010. However, on May 7th, Goodyear suddenly offered to reinstate me, and I returned to work on May 10th as a civilian employee of the court, right here in the courtroom. 7 months later, on December 15, 2010, after leaving work that day, I went to pick up my children from the after-school program at their private school. I ended up having to come to the defense of helpless preschool children who were being verbally abused by an out-of-control teacher's assistant in my daughter's classroom. According to Goodyear, the verbal-only confrontation I had with the male school worker constituted grounds for dismissal. So I was wrongfully terminated again on December 20th, 2010. I merely did what any concerned parent would do, faced with the same situation. I recently learned the timing of the complaint against Officer Harden back in September 2008, and the police department ignoring it is significant. This was shortly after the Pendleton controversy emerged and Terry Woodmansee was fired for whistleblowing on the Goodyear Police Department's misconduct, including Officer Harden. Goodyear had a vested interest in burying my complaint that Harden lied about another investigation, especially since I, as a police officer, was the one making the accusation. Goodyear's unfair treatment of me is nothing less than malicious retaliation. On September 26, 2011, I filed a lawsuit in federal court against the City of Goodyear for wrongful termination and civil rights violations. I have a process server here, and I'm serving my lawsuit tonight on the City Attorney, City Manager, City Clerk, and the Mayor. I am truly sorry, Mayor Lord, Council members, Bill, that it had to come to this. But I have not been listened to. I have not been able to tell my side of the story. And quite frankly, like I stated earlier, this is nothing more than malicious retaliation for something I tried to bring to light that the city was very sensitive about after the accident with Jared Pendleton on April 4th. I'm very sorry that it had to come to this.
Thank you. So I'm going to turn to our city attorney.
Process servers are here. They would like to just give you a copy so they can move.
That's fine. Typically, this is done during office hours, but if this is the manner in which
Okay.
you wish us to do this, we'll accept service this evening. Thank you.
The next speaker is Joyce Verdugo.
Mayor Lord, that was the process server.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Thank you.
Next speaker is Terry Woodmansee.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. I wasn't planning on being here again,
No,
but
you've done this before, but just be sure you do your address, okay, for public record.
Terry Woodmansee with Buckeye, Arizona. I wasn't planning on being here again, but each week Goodyear does something new that is egregious. Once again, I'm here to question the actions of Interim Chief Bill Kusan. This is a man your city management is considering for the chief's position. This is an interim chief who was tasked with taking over a department with misconduct, who can't even properly discipline the individuals who have hindered an investigation in the death of an 18-year-old boy. 3 years after his death, 2 individuals identified received letters of instructions and promotions. A slap in the face to the family. Now, Sergeant Darren Miller receives 1 day unpaid suspension, and Black Friday of all days. Let's give him a great 4-day weekend for the holiday. I would like to quote what Interim Chief Kusan told the Arizona Republic recently. Miller was given the suspension for violating the police department's neglect of duty policy by not writing a supplemental report. He further said Miller will not be disciplined for his failure, and I quote, failure, to seize Hardin's vehicle, because the city has taken the standpoint that he is a trained accident reconstructionist, and he discounted the vehicle as being involved that night. As a trained accident reconstructionist and one who knew Hardin's car might be involved, didn't he have a duty to seize that vehicle as potential evidence until it could be cleared without question? We all know that Paul Charlton very clearly stated in his city-requested investigation that Darren Miller failed to write a report, failed to inform the investigating officer, and failed to seize the vehicle to protect one of his own. This hindering a true investigation into Jared's death. Sergeant Miller took an oath to uphold the law, not obstruct the law. I'm pretty sure that these are crimes, and Councilmember Loretano, you might want to look into this as a previous prosecutor. This is not simply failing to write a supplemental report. What I should add is this still has not even been done. This is not a neglect of duty. This is willful disobedience of the law and policies and procedures of his own department. Even after the Gallagher and Kennedy report was released, he still has done no report. Can this city honestly tell its citizens, the public, and the surrounding communities that it is transparent and holds people accountable? My answer is no. This city rewards those who do wrong and punishes those who do right. You as a council have a duty to give the citizens and the people who visit this community a police department that is ran by a fair and just chief, who has integrity and ethics, not one who can't hold his own staff accountable, especially his friends. Mayor and council, this is not a simple supplemental report written about a burglary. These are actions regarding the death of an 18-year-old boy. An officer should not receive a simple punishment of a day off for these actions. Victims and their families have the right to know what you are going to do about this interim chief and his disgraceful decisions.
One more.
Next.
Joe Pacello.
Good evening, Council, Madam Mayor, Council, Manager. I'm going to respond to Ms. Woodmansey's comment.
Be sure you name your address, please.
Joe Pacello, Goodyear, Arizona. I'm a resident of Goodyear. I'm also the president of the Goodyear Police Officers Association. And I would like to respond to the comment about duty. There's a claim of corruption and cover-up made by Ms. Woodmansey several times over the course of the last several months, who, by the way, citizens know, is also dating our assistant to the chief of police, John Rowan, a relationship which began while she was still married. Now I want to direct you to the Paul Charlton report, page 32, dated March 28, 2011, under conclusions regarding the allegation of Officer Hardin washing his car. From our investigation, there is no evidence to suggest that Officer Hardin's vehicle was washed, other than a conversation between Officer Will and Mr. Rowan and overheard by Ms. Woodmansey. There is no actual evidence that the car was cleaned. Rumors of Officer Hardin washing the vehicle are also inconsistent with Officer Hardin's conduct on scene and afterward. Officer Hardin had a history of collisions and a term of employment in which any accident would result in his termination. Yet he immediately contacted his supervisor after driving through the Pendleton scene, It would be inconsistent for Officer Harden to suddenly destroy evidence after disclosing his possible involvement to this claim, to his chain of command. I'm sorry. I'll go on. In the fourth paragraph, it addresses, finally, we must consider Ms. Woodmansey's and Ms. Rowan's actions after allegedly hearing Officer Will state that Officer Harden washed the vehicle. Both individuals claimed that there was a cover-up, and both were vocal with investigators, including Officer Rogers, when they believed that the investigation was not proceeding correctly. Yet when they supposedly were given information about a conspiracy to destroy evidence, they did not share this information with Officer Rogers or the Chief of Police. So let me get this straight. John Rowan and Ms. Woodmansey hear Officer Harden allegedly washed his car, which we know is not true, based on several investigations. This alleged information comes to John Rowan and Ms. Woodmansey, and they do what with it? They do nothing. These individuals claim cover-up, yet being people of such high integrity and values, they take the information and keep it to themselves. They don't tell the Chief of Police, nor do they even bring this to the attention of the city management. I ask, why would the Chief of Police's right hand and his girlfriend, also employed by the Goodyear Police Department at the time, withhold information about an alleged conspiracy to destroy evidence? Is there not a duty to report there? Why did they not come forward? Surely they knew they had a duty to report. If there is a conspiracy, maybe that conspiracy starts with you.
Thank you. Any other speakers?
No, no more speaker cards.
We'll go to the consent items, and I'd like to ask the city clerk to read the consent items A through D by title only.
Item A, approve draft minutes of a regular meeting and a special meeting held on November 28th, 2011. Item B, approve current fiscal year FY 2011-2012 budget transfers. Item C, approve a bulk water delivery agreement between the city and the Litchfield Park Service Company, Liberty Water, and authorize the city manager to execute any and all documents necessary to enter into and carry out the intent of this agreement. Item D, accept the dedication of 2 parcels of land totaling approximately 3,833 square feet located within the city-owned property located at the southwest corner of Indian School Road and Cotton Lane.
Thank you. Does anyone from the public wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? Does anyone from the council wish to remove an item from the consent agenda?
I've got a question on C.
Just
a
take
question.
a question on C.
Yeah.
Do we have staff that could take that, please? On C, bulk water delivery agreement between the city.
Good
Just
evening,
a-
Mayor and Council.
Just a quick question, Jerry. Are we on a regular basis taking any of that water from Liberty? Or is this just strictly for emergencies?
This is for emergencies. We have currently got Adam Well number 2 working, so we have Adam Well number 1, number 2. This is strictly for an emergency basis.
Okay, so not on a regular basis, then, we're not taking any water from,
No.
okay. Thank you.
With no another.
I have a question,
Oh,
Jerry.
Yes.
When we buy water from Liberty, do we have full recovery of the cost of that water when we run it through our system and bill our subscribers?
The way the billing system works, yes, we do.
Thank you.
All right, could I hear a motion and a second for the consent agenda, items A through D, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Stipp and second by Councilman Loretano. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Loretano?
Yes.
Councilmember Campbell?
Aye.
Councilmember Gilzer?
Aye.
Councilmember Stipp?
Aye.
Councilmember Pizzillo?
Aye.
Mayor Lord?
Aye.
Passes 6-0.
So we'll go on to the business agenda, and the first agenda on A is the first business item to consider amending Articles 2-4 and 2-5 from the Goodyear City Code. Lynn Mohan will present.
Good evening, Mayor Lord, council members. The item before you is to consider changes to Article 2-4 and 2-5 of the Goodyear City Code. The articles relate to council procedures and adoption of ordinances and resolutions. Most of the changes clean up language that's currently in the code to better reflect charter language and statutory requirements. The biggest change for council to consider is the start time for council meetings. Staff is making this suggestion to avoid conflicts with public hearings and for convenience for the public. As you know, many Monday nights when we have regular meetings, we have a council meeting prior to the meeting, and if we've published a public hearing, the council has to call that meeting to order at 6 o'clock. And if you haven't finished discussing the item at the work session, it can be frustrating. I do want to point out something that was brought to my attention today. On the strikeout copy that you have in your packet, the address of the justice facility is wrong. However, it is correct in the ordinance.
What page is that on?
Let's see. I don't have the pages on mine. It was the very first page where it talks about the location of the meetings.
Thank you.
It wasn't corrected on the strikeout version, but it is corrected in the ordinance. So how do you feel about a 5 o'clock start time? I guess you need to have the ordinance read first.
We'll talk
and
about
Maureen will read it.
Yes. Maureen?
Adopt Ordinance 11-1251, amending Article 2-4 of Chapter 2 of the Goodyear City Code relating to council procedures, amending Article 2-5 of Chapter 2 of the Goodyear City Code relating to the adoption of ordinances and resolutions, providing a severability clause, providing for repeal of conflicting or inconsistent ordinances, rules and regulations, providing a penalty clause, and providing for an effective date.
And I think before we go on, we should have asked the audience if there was anybody that wanted to speak on this. All right. I'd like to ask for a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
There was a motion by Councilwoman Campbell and a second by Councilman Stipp. Open for council discussion. Councilman Pizzillo?
I personally like the work sessions a couple hours before, and here's my logic behind that. It forces staff to be more concise and to the point in getting their message across within a period of time. And I think that's a planning issue. If you have 2 hours, if you have 3 items on there, it ain't going to happen. So to me, if it's planned properly within the 2 hours and the PowerPoint is done and a measure, like again, I'll use the example of the HR presentation the other day, it can be concise enough to get the information out. We can have enough time to discuss it, and we have a forced time at 6 o'clock to get it done. My concern is if we do it after the meeting, there's no pressure. I mean, we could have these work sessions going on forever, and getting out at 10 or 11. So I like the fact there's a forced deadline, and then we can rate staff on the fact, are they meeting and getting that information to us in a concise and planned method within those 2 hours? And I think we should hold staff accountable within that. That's why I like the 4 o'clock. That's my perspective.
Councilwoman Olortano?
I have a perspective for a different issue, and it really ties into that survey that we had about the South. Okay, if I'm working, if I'm a citizen and I want to come to a meeting, and I'm working 9 to 5, and I'm driving in from Phoenix or Scottsdale, I'm not going to be able to make it to the meetings. I think the earlier you make it, the harder it is. And you add for us people up in Estrella, we're another 15, 20 minutes just getting up the hill to come back. So my concern is, or if you want to watch it on the internet live, or if it's something that's very important, I don't think people in this economy can take off that extra hour to beat the traffic down I-10 or Buckeye Road or the 101 to get here by 5. I think 6 o'clock does give that time. It takes about an hour to get traffic. If you could leave downtown at 5, it takes you at least an hour commute. So I would say leave it at 6, and we just have to be a little more concise and with our PowerPoints then.
Other comments? Councilman Stipp?
I said to Lynn earlier that I was only going to support a 5 o'clock if we could put a caveat on the other end of this. But I think Councilman Pizzillo's comments make a lot, they make a lot of sense, and I know every time that a council is elected, there's a struggle between how much is too much information, how much is just enough information. But I do like the idea of, we have a box that we have to stay within in that time frame. And if that means we've got to start the meeting a little bit earlier to get it done, I'm all for it. I love the information. I'd love to get it ahead of time. And I almost had a heart attack tonight when Paula plopped down 50 slides in front of us before a 1-hour work session. And Paul, I want to give you a thumbs up for blowing through 50 slides and very effectively on that, by the way. But I'm in agreement with Councilman Pizzillo about leaving it at 6 o'clock and putting some constraints in place.
Well, Mayor.
Councilwoman Campbell?
Thank you. I like the 5 o'clock start, and you can have a time frame for your work sessions no matter what time you have them, and the city manager can tell staff that our work session is going to be from such and such a time to such and such a time, and they need to have their information prepared for us so that we will have ample time to discuss. You can put just as much pressure on them at a late work session as you can at one before the 6 o'clock meeting. I mean, that's just my opinion. And then it gets us, it's no fun to be here till 10:30, 11, or 12 at night. And I know we're elected to do that, but we need to come, and we need to manage our time better. Perhaps just having work sessions by themselves and not before a meeting, which would entail that we would be meeting more frequently. So, but that's just my thoughts. But the 5 o'clock is fine with me. And I have talked to some folks that are working, and they had no problem with it, but I didn't talk to the folks that work downtown Phoenix to ask them, what they would think.
Councilman Gelser?
I don't really care what time we start. I do have the same concerns that Councilman Pizzillo mentioned about sometimes we have long work sessions, and basically, I hate to say this, but I've blocked out every Monday night of my calendar for as long as I've been either attending council or as a citizen or on the council. And I would encourage our city manager, when we have a long work session or it's planned that a topic that is going to be, will take discussion from council, especially when we start doing fees or doing tax policy or those kinds of things, that we just schedule those on nights that we don't have a council meeting, and then we can police ourselves to get out of here before 9 or 10 o'clock at night. But 6 o'clock is fine, 5 o'clock is fine. I really don't care. I'm going to be here.
Well, from my personal observation is we're just as guilty. Some of our work sessions, we go on and on and on. So I can't push this all on staff. And as your mayor, I've allowed you to go on and on and on. So, I'll take the responsibility on that. I can certainly, start cutting off people, and I will, in mid-sentence. So I do think that maybe we need to gather our thoughts and be more prepared for our statements so that we don't carry it on to that extent. So am I getting a feeling that everybody wants to start at 5 o'clock for work sessions and 6 o'clock for the council meeting? Is that what you're stating? Because I'm confused by a couple of your comments.
Madam Mayor, also, we've been struggling to find different times to start, because if we see a work session that's going to be longer, we've been trying to schedule 4:30 or 4 even. And part of the problem, what really prompted this, was more so the public hearings that are scheduled for a specific time, so that the work sessions have to end by that time. Or else, if it turns out to be a really short work session and there's 25 minutes until the meeting starts, you can't really start the meeting because of the public hearing. So.
Comments?
I like I like the 4-6 myself.
So 4 o'clock for your work sessions and 6 for the meeting.
Yeah, because, again, like Councilmember Laurentano mentioned, there may be some people that may not be able to get here at 5, so, that live, in the southern part. We've got a huge city, and, I'm with her on the 6. I just like the time constraint myself from a time management standpoint. I work in it in my school when I do my, I have certain hours certain timelines I have to do my lecture, a certain time that they have to do their in learning assignment. So I have lesson plans and, very specific on how I work within those timelines. And I think if you get the things in advance, which we have been getting at the 4 o'clock, and again, I use, and I hate to beat on a dead horse, but I use the HR one as one I thought that went very, very well. It worked. So that's my preference.
Mayor Lord, Councilmember Pizzillo, are you saying you want work sessions to begin at 4 all the time right now?
Not all the time. If you only need an hour, you start at
Okay.
5.
Oh, Councilman Stiff?
That's where I'm in agreement with Councilman
Okay.
Pizzillo on that. On the work session issue, we get a little winded and try to run through some issues, and I realize the new guy is the most guilty of them all, but that's our only time to talk. Half the time we don't see one another, so to be able to have that dialogue and to go through that in those work sessions, and especially for me, it has been very, very helpful. And I don't know if it's been helpful for anybody in the public or anybody else on council, but to have that discussion and that level of it has been very, very helpful. And I would hate to see us saying, well, you've already talked too much tonight.
Well, are you still in agreement then that if it so happens on occasional meetings that we will just have a second work session after the main meeting, that we'll adjourn it, go on time to the meeting, and then you'll stay with no complaints
Oh, I'm going to complain. But
for the final works. Is that an agreement? I don't think we have a consensus for this change. So
We just brought it to you so you could discuss it because we felt there was an issue
Right.
when we had to stop a work session at 6
well,
o'clock.
there was, and we're all responsible for this. So I just want to make sure council realizes that you will take the responsibility along with staff. We were asking staff to present a more shortened version of it, but we have a limitation on how many questions we can ask and how long that discussion goes. Councilman Pizzillo?
I don't have a problem kicking a work session on later on, but with the caveat, if it's because we didn't do a very good job of managing the discussion up front, then I would be upset.
I think
with
if you as a council person have more questions to ask, and the presentation has been made, and you want to have a longer conversation, then so be it. We will meet together after the regular meeting. I mean, so that you fully understand the issues and you've been able to discuss it. Councilwoman Campbell.
Well, it's okay to do this. However, it would be very helpful to us, city manager, if staff would not, when they do their presentation to us, maybe not go back to the background 4 or 5 times after we've heard the same stuff time and time again, and then their presentations are long to us, and then we have a lot of questions.
I think part of that is that some of you, as you say, were new. So it's hard for them to know which one of us has the information or doesn't have the information. So I don't know if there's a way that during the week some information background information can be given to the council. I don't know. We're just looking for solutions on this.
We can certainly take into account what Councilmember Campo is saying and just try and experiment and see how we can do it. So.
You know what I'm getting
Oh,
at.
sure, I do. And it's
Yeah.
really important that the council dialogues among themselves on whatever issue that comes before us, because we don't know where any of us are coming from if we don't talk about it. And I just think it's equally important that all of us have an opportunity to ask every question we want to within reason, as well as having a nice, brief presentation, unless it's such a brand-new subject, we have to talk about everything, if you know what I mean.
The only thing that I just warn you about is that, and I've heard this off and on by some of us, is that why didn't they tell us? Why wasn't that put in the presentation? So you have to take that in consideration. If you're going to cut the time of a presentation, there are going to be some things that are not going to be presented. So, yes,
Madam Mayor?
Councilman Loretano.
Oh, I just want to say, I think where you can cut down, I think what Councilmember Campbell is saying is, like, a lot of times we have these are all the dates that we went through, and we go literally 10 minutes going through dates, and then we recap the same dates at the end. That that can be a slide, but no one needs to read it verbatim. I think that's where some of the problem is. Like, I know in a lot of these, today's was great. We hit the high points, probably hit the high points. But when you read the slides, I've already read like 4 slides ahead while we're still reading those slides. Hit the high points, hit the important part, and then our questions will develop where to go from it. I don't need to be read to, and that is my pet peeve. And I think that's what takes a lot of time. But that information's still there, but it doesn't need to be read, and it can be up there, move on. But it's there, we have it.
So maybe this is a training issue?
Yeah, and Madam Mayor, but one of the problems is that the staff always tries to err on the side of educating the public also. And so that's why we include everything that is included. And
That's
we
a
will
good
just
point.
try to make sure that we are more careful as to what we include.
Mayor,
Councilman Stipp.
I think, and Mr. Manager, you and I have talked about this before, that even if everybody were to include all, and I'm going to use, Paula's 50 slides tonight, even if we were to get all 50 slides, whoever's making that presentation only needs to talk about the top 25 or the top 10 and leave that information in the packet. So A, it's available to the public. B, it provides all the background information for us. And then, we can just kind of go through some of the highlights so that it helps, I think, achieve that information piece if everybody's okay with that. Because each one of us has different levels of need. And I think the background information at times is very, very helpful, but I've read it before I came to the meeting. I don't need to hear it again, and I think that's what Councilmember Loretano was talking about.
Well, we have a motion on the table, so we have to go through the roll call. Is that
Well,
correct?
you probably need to amend the motion because part of the ordinance that we brought before you has a 5 o'clock start time. So you'll have to amend that
Okay,
to keep
so-
the 6
I have
o'clock.
one other
Can I
on
hear a
something different.
motion to amend the start time?
We're not done with
Why
the
don't you get
discussion
the
yet.
main motion maker just to amend his motion,
All right.
and then
That was
get
you.
the same second
Okay.
person, and then we can just vote on it.
But are we taking each of the changes separately?
No, it's. Did you want to go over any of the other changes? Okay.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, I just wanted to
Sorry.
I have one quick comment, and it's an applause. Item 2-4-10 on voting. I am glad to see we're going to step into the technology, and we're going to allow the mechanical vote.
If you give us money.
Well, there's always a caveat in there, but I'm glad to see that as part of the changes. So I thank you for looking into the future for that.
Councilman Campbell, you?
Mayor, I would like to amend my motion to adopt the resolution by amending the start time from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
Madam Mayor and motion maker, you may just want to strike the reference to the 5 o'clock start time.
Oh, all right.
I'm sorry. Then, Madam Mayor, I would like to strike the start time. My motion would be that we accept the resolution as presented, but striking the start time.
An ordinance.
An ordinance, but strike the start time.
And do I need the second on this
Yes.
one? Do I hear a second?
I'll second that because
All
I
right.
second the original.
Councilman Stipp, second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Campbell,
Aye.
Councilmember Gelzer,
Aye.
Councilmember Stipp,
Aye.
Councilmember Pizzillo,
Aye.
Councilmember Loretano,
Aye.
Mayor Lord.
Aye.
Passes 6-0.
Thank you.
Need a main motion.
And now we'll go to item B. You ready? We will now consider the First Amendment to agreement for the MAG 208 amendment between the City of Goodyear, Litchfield Park Services Company, DBA Liberty Water. Joe Schmidt present.
Madam Mayor, council members, I'm a little confused. I don't know if I should do this presentation or not.
Sorry about
As
that.
long as
We
it's
put
short,
so much
Joe.
pressure on you.
Hit the highlights.
Maybe I should just ask
We're
her.
doing quite well tonight. It's only 7:15.
Should I ask if there's questions first? Okay. The action requested tonight is approval of a resolution which will in turn approve First Amendment to the agreement for MAG 208 amendment between the City of Goodyear and Lipsco, also known as Liberty Water Company. Just the title of this resolution alone, I think, creates confusion because you got the First Amendment to a 208 amendment, and so I'm going to try to explain it to you. I'll go quickly. In 2000, Lipsco had notified the city of its intent to stop sending wastewater to our system, and that they were going to construct a plant and required an amendment to the MAG 208 Water Quality Management Plan. MAG manages the water quality management plan for the region. It had said that the City of Goodyear would provide service to the area. Then when Lipsco said they wanted to build their own plant, that was a change. The amendments have to be sponsored by one of the members of MAG. So Lipsco asked the city to sponsor submission of an amendment to MAG for the 208 Water Quality Management Plan to authorize them to provide that service. So the council approved Resolution 2007-37, and in that resolution, it authorized submission of the amendment to MAG, but it had certain stipulations that facilities were going to be located north of McDowell Road only after proper zoning was obtained, no financial obligations on the part of the city. The facilities were that be operated in a way to produce Class A sludge, and that was supposed to, the city and Lipsco was supposed to hold certain public meetings and public hearings before proceeding. So a public hearing was held in August of 2000, and at that, after conducting the public hearing, the council decided to go ahead and approve submission of the amendment to MAG, but it also approved an agreement for MAG 208 amendment, which was an agreement between the city and Lipsco that was going to go along with the submission of the amendment to MAG. And it had certain stipulations built into it. It talked about the build-out capacity of 16.4 million gallons in 2 facilities in 4 phases, each phase of 4.1 MGD. Construction of each phase was supposed to comply with all state and federal odor requirements, all state and federal noise requirements, produce Class A sludge without violation of state and federal requirements, comply with the engineering report that was prepared by Environmental Utilities International at the time, and that the facilities would be north of McDowell Road. Compliance with the agreement would be determined by the city's designated consultant with each phase of construction, and the findings would be presented and approved by the city council. And then lastly, failure to comply would nullify Goodyear's consent. Subsequent to that, in April of 2003, the city council approved Resolution 2003-863, which removed the requirement to produce Class A sludge. Basically, it was determined that the sludge that was being produced was basically going to a landfill anyway, and it was really not a need to produce Class A quality. It was okay to produce a lesser than Class A quality. However, the agreement between the parties wasn't amended at that time. Likewise, in May of 2005, the City Council approved the PAD for Palm Valley Phase 8, and it included a change in location for the Saraville Water Reclamation Facility from the north side to the south side of McDowell Road. It was determined that that would be a better location for the facility rather than on the north side of McDowell. However, again, the agreement was not amended at that time. And that's the Saraville site, so you have an idea of where it's located. It's on the south side of McDowell Road, about 1/8 of a mile west of Saraville. And it would basically be surrounded by either commercial or industrial type land uses, and it's separated from the balance of Pebble Creek, and it has the I-10 corridor on the south side. Okay, if everybody's ready, I'll move off that slide? Okay. So it brings us to today, and hopefully that wasn't too long a trip back in history. It was only in 2000, but it's been a decade already. It's hard to believe. Lipscomb is planning an upgrade to the water reclamation facility now that would enhance its treatment efficiencies, which effectively will increase capacity at the existing Palm Valley Water Reclamation Facility from 4.1 to 5.1 MGD. There'll be additional filtration equipment installed within the existing plant footprint. And while it's increasing capacity and for all intents and purposes of the agreement, it's considered an expansion, there's really not an expansion of the physical layout of the plant. It's all happening internally within the footprint of the plant. However, as I said, because it's considered an expansion, it appeared to trigger the requirement in the agreement about city approval and third-party review. Because the nature of the expansion being at what it is, it didn't really make sense to us to have a third-party review, to go to the expense of a third-party review. And also, there was other alternatives available, such as certification of the work to be done to the city rather than having a third party review it and review and approve it. So when we were approached regarding compliance with the terms of the agreement, we determined that we would like to change the agreement to handle it differently and to address some of the things that had occurred in the past that had not been incorporated into the agreement. So the proposed amendments basically are, number one, to recognize that the plant expansion may occur in increments other than 4.1 MGD. It's not changing that. It's not to exceed 8.2 on each site, total of 16.4. We'd add a previously approved change in the sludge requirement to the agreement. We would revise the agreement to reflect the location of the Saraville Water Reclamation Facility as south of McDowell rather than north of McDowell. And that we would replace the requirement for third-party review and the City Council approval with a requirement that Lipscomb submit CDs for review, CDs for any expansion for review by the city, along with an engineer's certification of compliance with the terms of the agreement. So, again, the action requested is approval of the resolution to implement those changes to the agreement, and we have representation here tonight from Liberty Water Company, including Greg Sorensen, the Vice President of Delivery. Great. And if there's any questions that staff or Liberty can answer, we'd be welcome to entertain them.
Thank you. Well, before that begins, are there any speaker cards?
No, there aren't.
Okay. Then I'm going to ask the clerk to read the resolution by title only, please.
Adopt Resolution 11-1467, approving the First Amendment to Agreement for MAG 208 Amendment with Litchfield Park Service Company and providing for an effective date.
Could I hear a motion, please, and a second?
So moved.
Second.
I hear a motion by Councilman Gelser and a second by Councilman Stipp. Opened for council discussion. Councilman Pizzello.
Just real quick, there was a while back, and I don't know if you can answer this or probably somebody from the wastewater, where we had some odor issues north of McDowell there on that plant. Has that pretty much been resolved? And then I guess my second question is I know we're starting to look at expansion of the wastewater treatment plant. We're getting near that 80%. Is there any possibility, or has the staff looked at anything on, from a cost standpoint, partner with either Liberty or other wastewater facilities from a cost standpoint to see if there's some value in doing that as we move forward? Has anybody looked at that? It's probably for McDowell, I'm guessing.
Madam Mayor, let me respond to that first.
Okay.
As far as the odor, the staff does check that every week, and there has not been a complaint or a problem in the past 3.5 years. Second part of that question, I know that we are, in fact, working with the City of Tolleson on a joint regional sewer study that the mayor and I heard a presentation on several months ago, and they're looking at some way that perhaps Buckeye, Avondale, Goodyear, Glendale, et cetera, others could participate in a regional plant. So those investigations are taking place.
Good.
Because
good.
they have the capacity.
Yes, and that's
Allison
that's why I'm
does.
just kind of throwing out some others that have capacity, whether it's them or others. That would be a thank you.
Councilman Campbell.
Yes, I have two questions. Can you tell me why why it was not amended in the first place 2 different times when there were changes?
Mayor Lord, Council Member Campbell, I can't say with specificity as to why, other than just might have been an oversight.
Twice, though?
Well, the approvals were done in a proper manner in terms of particularly in terms of the resolution being adopted by the City Council for the change in the sludge.
Mm-hmm.
And then secondly, the zoning was done as part of a larger PAD, and I don't believe anybody thought about it at the time, but it had some effect on the agreement.
Okay. Would you put the Pebble Creek map back up for me, please?
Okay, Eddie? Eddie? Oop, there it is.
Okay.
That's terrible. Joe, we're looking at this map. I'm going to jump in here. You show the triangle is now the new location. Correct. Across or north of McDowell is now Pebble Creek. So the change from north to south occurred before this development change to the PAD occurred, or somewhere in that order. I think it's the question that we have down here at this end. The Mayor Lord, Councilmember Stipp, the rezoning was done in 2005. This is the later phases of Pebble Creek, but I don't recall specifically the timing. I want to say that this part of the Pebble Creek project probably wasn't there when it was
I think you're
changed.
right.
You're right, it was not there.
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right. Okay, well, as long as they can guarantee there'll be no odors and we'll have no complaints from those residents, because they have built out there now. This is Unit 64, Georgia. This is right against that wall.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay.
Madam Mayor, if I may elaborate a little bit on the response to Councilman Pizzillo's question. Liberty has done, since 2007, they've done some extensive work on the air handling systems within the plant that have really improved the capabilities of the plant to minimize odors, and it's to their credit that they took those steps. And I was at the plant today and was very impressed as to what they had done and to what extent that they can control odors. It's amazing within the building as well as outside the building, because usually plants can be pretty odorous, and I was impressed.
So lessons learned.
Yeah.
Any other comment? Councilman Gelzer.
I would like to invite the Liberty people to come up and maybe elaborate more on why this increase will not create some of the same problems that we had previously with the odor, and whether that was a bad design that got retrofitted, and now we're, I'm going to kick the ball in your court. You got a couple of minutes to tell us, and be technical, please.
Mayor, Council, my name is Greg Sorensen. I'm the Vice President of Service Delivery for Liberty Water. And to the extent, if you want to get any more technical than what I'm able to cover, we have our engineers as well as our operations manager here to address any further technical questions. There we go. Sorry about that. Yes, absolutely. My name is Greg Sorensen. I am the Vice President of Service Delivery for Liberty Water. With regard to any technical questions further from what I can address for you, we have our engineers here as well as our business manager, who can address if you want to get into retention times for sludge or anything like that, we can certainly have them step up and address that. But I'll try to address your question first. As far as whether it was a bad design originally, no, I don't believe it was a bad design. Whenever you go into design and construction, you make certain assumptions with regard to the wastewater treatment process and how things are going to react. I think that there were probably some actualities that ended up changing from what the assumptions were originally back in 2000 during the design phase. I appreciate having worked with the city and their staff to help address the odor concerns back in the 2007 and 2008 timeframes. As you heard Joe mention, he visited our plant today. Honestly, it's an amazing plant right now. You wouldn't know when you walk in the building that you're at a wastewater treatment facility. We've operated in a tremendous manner, and I appreciate the city staff. I know they've visited us, I want to say at some point it may have been on a daily basis, but I know it's been weekly and may have been even cut back from then, from that frequency. Quite honestly, because of the success that we've had, we now actually have a school next door to our facility, and have had no complaints with them. And quite honestly, we look forward to being a great neighbor for them, and hopefully vice versa. The expansion itself, from 4.1 to 5.1, I know as we're in challenging economic times, you always look for ways to do things better, more efficiently than maybe we had looked at back in 2000 when we set up the MAG amendment and this agreement with the city to expand in 4.1 million gallon chunks, for lack of a better word. Now we've been able to find kind of better and more efficient, less and much more cost-effective ways for us to expand the facility, as Joe mentioned, without actually changing the physical footprint of the facility. So in turn, that helps us keep our costs down to our ratepayers. Because quite honestly, I don't relish the fact, and I don't think council does either, of going to your citizens, our customers, and requesting increased rates. So part of this has to do with economics as far as the size of the expansion. With regard to odor control, which is certainly something that we need to always keep in mind, particularly when we have a home, I believe, as close as 165 feet from the back door of our plant, we operate in maybe some more challenging circumstances with regard to proximity of customers than I'd say almost any other wastewater plant that you'd see here in the valley. And we've taken that, particularly in the last several years, task to heart, and I think we've had great success at doing that. In response, we have actually increased the odor control unit that we put in back in 2007, 2008. We actually increased the size essentially by adding additional trains, for lack of a better word, onto the ERISA system that will allow us to probably more than adequately address any odor control concerns from the increased million gallons of wastewater running through the facility.
Okay, let me do a quick follow-up. When you begin to develop the Sarville facility, will the initial footprint be at a 4.1 gallon situation, or could it be a smaller, based on this amendment, could it come in as a 2 million gallon or a 3 million gallon initially, and then ramp itself up as demand increases in million gallon increments? And when do you think the Sarville facility will, come online?
I'll try to, Councilman, I will try and address that in the two-part question. First, yes, I would envision it going in more of a staged process, as I mentioned earlier. I think, particularly in the economic times that we've seen recently, I think we need to be efficient with regard to capital expenditures, try and time those expenditures with regard to need. I don't want to unnecessarily burden existing or customers that come on sooner rather than later with the futures costs. I'd rather try and match those capital expenditures with the demand that's being created. This particular expansion, if you look at the demand that's being created here, a lot of it's being driven by the regional mall that'll be coming on in 2014, and we want to make sure that we are able to address our capacity needs for that mall in advance of them coming on, so that there's never any concern with regard to them being adequately served. Back to the second part of your Sarville question, yes, it would be staged. And forgive me, the second piece of the question was, when would that be? Quite honestly, I wish I could have the crystal ball that's going to tell me exactly what development is going to occur when. And for us, when we look at our planning, we're talking about a question of where the development happens. If you look at the slope, kind of our service territory, if future development happens more quickly on the western side of our service territory, that would probably trigger the need to expand at Saraval sooner rather than later. If the growth occurs on kind of the eastern part of our service territory, it would more naturally kind of flow downhill to our existing facility there on McDowell Road between Bullard and Litchfield. So the answer really will depend upon where it comes from, but I wouldn't picture starting the Saraval facility certainly for probably greater than 5 years. But that's as it sits today. If quite honestly, if a developer came in and next week and told us, hey, look, this is what we're going to develop and it's going to be on in 4 years and it's all out there in the west, I'd probably reconsider my answer that I gave you right here.
Okay, and then the current facility can be ramped up to an 8.2 million gallon capacity, and then it's maxed out. Is that? Do I understand that correctly?
That is, with regard to the current MAG approval, it is maxed out at 8.2. We have the MAG approval for an 8.2 ultimate build out at our current Palm Valley facility there on McDowell, as well as 8.2 at the Saraval facility.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir.
Any other questions for Mr. Sorensen? Thank you very much. We appreciate
Thank you
it.
for the opportunity to talk to you.
Okay, now it's time for roll call, please.
Councilmember Gilzer?
Aye.
Councilmember Stitt?
Aye.
Councilmember Pizzillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Loretano?
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell?
Aye.
Mayor Lord?
Aye.
Passes 6-0.
Thank you. Now's the time for council to have any comments or reports on current events. Yes, Councilwoman Loretano.
Is this our last meeting before the Christmas break?
This is it. This is
Okay.
Merry Christmas time and Happy New Year.
Well, that's what I was going to say. First of all, I was going to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, a Happy New Year.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. I think I covered everything. Go shop Goodyear. I attended the Litchfield Park Parade and the YMCA Board Retreat. Learned a lot about the Y and all their great programs that they have. And is this a time, should I ask the city manager for updates, or you don't come back?
Why don't we come back to that?
Okay,
Let's just
then
do
that's all
this.
I have. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year.
Any other council members have?
Just wish everybody happy holidays.
Yeah.
Okay. I know you do, Councilwoman Campbell.
Well, yes, I was in the parade with everyone, with our mayor, who looked lovely on her red convertible, I
thank
will
you.
say, and Councilwoman Laurentano and her darling children. But I did want to tell you that we have been shopping for the Mobile children, and tomorrow. I'm sorry. Wednesday, we're driving to Mobile at 8 o'clock, and we're taking Santa Claus in the car, and we're going to go to Mobile School and take all of their presents and have a little party with them. And then we're going to help the Employees Fill a Need program is doing wonderfully well. We have some very talented, wonderful folks that are in charge of that, and they're ready to go. We're hoping
Great.
everybody's adopted someone off of the tree.
Great.
And I'd like to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas and a very healthy New Year.
Anybody else? Councilman Stitt.
No, just the same. Happy holidays, Happy New Year, and to everybody, my councilmates. Litchfield Park Parade was awesome. It was that sense of community that I think we're looking for. The amazing thing is when people left, there were a number of folks that were turning left out of Litchfield Park to come back into Goodyear, and I thought that was awesome. So,
Councilman Zello, you have anything? No, I have to agree about the Litchfield Parade. It was really a huge community parade, and there were a number of people on the sidelines yelling at us, "Go Goodyear," and, hi to us, and it was very rewarding. And I have to say, Litchfield did an excellent job of organization. That was quite a large parade. And so if we talk about collaboration and cooperation, I think that's a prime example of it. And I think it will just continue to grow. They may have to take it out on a few more streets, though, I think, if we're going to do that. Well, I want to wish you all happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and in my household it's Merry Christmas, but in many other households it's not. And I just want to say that it's been a pleasure having you all on this dais with me this 9 months that I've been sitting on it, and I look forward to a new year. And I'd like to compliment council for all their accomplishments this year. There have been some tough items, and I think tonight was an example of the things that weren't so great in the city in the last year, but we've overcome a lot of it. And I just think that I just think we've done quite well in the downturn, and we are on an upswing. And I just look forward to working with all of you. And City Manager, thank you, and our attorney and city clerk office. We appreciate this. So I guess I can adjourn this, but before I do, I'm going to turn it over to the city manager and make sure the council people do not have any requests of the city manager. I wasn't going to forget it.
Okay, I'm going to be on my technology. At the next year, can we get an update on the iPads, the Facebook, and I got one more to add. Peoria just got an app, a phone app for a smartphone that basically helps them with their website. I would like to know more about that, and if it's something we can do while we're looking to all of our technology as part of the package.
Certainly.
So no criticisms or anything. I just wanted the update, see how we're doing with that.
Any other comments? All right, then I'm going to turn it over to the city manager.
I have nothing this evening.
Nothing?
Merry Christmas.
All right, Merry Christmas. With that, I'm going to adjourn the meeting.